Hello and welcome. My name is Philippa and I am the understudy, and today we are doing a brand new series. This is the first episode of musical theater history, which means that we're gonna go through everything that you can possibly think of in musical theater that has happened before. We're gonna start all the way back from ancient Greece and then up until modern day, and it's gonna be very long and extensive with a lot of information. In this episode we're gonna go through a lot of different things, but it's all basic concepts that you have to know if you're gonna do musical theater. So let's talk about why we study musical theater. We study musical theater to get a better understanding of the foundations and references in rehearsals and performances. So if you want to become a performer or part of the artistic team in a musical, you must understand what comes before you, because every piece of history can directly affect your ability to do your best work. By understanding the foundations of musical theater and realizing how the current condition came to be, you can do more than you thought possible. You will learn purpose of different people, thoughts, and ideas about the world of musical theater. So this guide will help you gain knowledge about how musical theater came to be and how it has grown. It will also provide you with a list of significant people and shows in Revue history. And this entire curriculum is based on the history and development of musical theater in the US. But musical theater has evolved outside of the US as well. While musical theater is not strictly American, this guide that I'm creating will be contained to American history of musical theater to keep it simple and kind of organized. Especially in the US, musical theater has had a unique influence on the culture. So up until 1964, musical theater was what people listened to, and every school dance and wedding consisted of musical theater songs. Everyone in the US knew when a new musical theater album was going to be released, and everyone outside the country was aware of the musical theater craze that happened here. So while musical theater was replaced by rock and roll and the Beatles in 1964, it soon came back into the modern world, starting a movie musical trend in 1989 with The Little Mermaid, and that still lives today with other Disney movies and movie musical remakes. Because musical theater is growing, shaping, and influencing what is popular today, it becomes even more important that we study its history. So there are a few different resources that anyone who studies musical theater should know. Besides a lot of websites and books and other resources, we do have Musicals 101. We also have the Internet Broadway database and the New York Public Library, especially the Billy Rose Theater Division, which has every single major Broadway musical after the 1940s professionally filmed and available for viewing. This specific guide that I'm creating is mainly inspired by my musical theater history course at New York Film Academy. And then other resources, you can also see a lot of books. There are some on my channel, audiobooks that you can find, but a lot of different things all over the place. If you have questions, put them down in the comments and I'll help you connect with more resources. There are 6 musical elements that must be in a show for it to be called a musical. So let's look at these requirements. First of all, we have the story. The show must have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and there should be some variety of plot points and events. The show must also have some kind of music that ranges from anything from a cappella with no instruments to a full orchestra. There must be rhythm and melody in the show. We also have a need for a performance of one or more people. The show also needs to take place in a unified space like a theater, a church, park, a stage, etc. There is some debate to whether or not online spaces qualify, but it has not yet been settled, so we'll see. The show must also have an audience of one or more people. And the last one, well, this is the most negotiable requirement, a musical should also use body movement to tell the story. Generally, just standing and reading lines and singing the music is not a fully staged musical. So, having these requirements in mind, there are many types of shows that are closely related to musicals, and there are different types of musicals. Many of these genres can go together and might occur simultaneously. So, let's look at some of the genres. First off, we have opera. An opera is a story that is entirely sung through, and the music never stops. An opera can be a musical. For example, we have Les Mis, we have falsettos, Sweeney Todd, Hadestown, etc. Many modern operas might be classified as musicals because they break the general structure of a classic opera. So an opera is also a separate genre of performance and is the precursor to musical theater. Some famous operas are Madame Butterfly, Marriage of Figaro, La Bohème, and Street Scene. An operetta is a story that is mostly sung through, but not entirely. It is generally about 10% or less dialogue. And these are rarer, and they are more likely to be miscategorized as either operas or musicals. Some of the more famous ones are The Merry Widow, Pirates of Penzance, Candide, and we also have some arguable operettas that, because of their modern style, might not be, or they might be classified as musical operas. Hamilton and Natasha Pierre the Great Comet of 1812 as an example. So for ballets, classical ballets are similar to classical operas in their grand style, and instead of having sung through, they are danced through, which means that there is no talking or singing because the dancing is telling the story. So some examples of classical ballets are Swan Lake, Giselle, The Nutcrackers, Cinderella, etc. And while ballets are usually expressed through the dance-style ballet, that is also not a necessity. So as long as the show tells the story through dance, it can be classified as a ballet, whether it features jazz, hip-hop, contemporary, or any other dance style. Many musicals also have sections that are told as ballets, something that became a lot more popular after Agnes de Mille's Dream Ballet in Oklahoma. Because ballets have no song or dialogue, a musical cannot be classified as a ballet, but it can have these dream ballet sections in them. Next up, we have the musical comedy. So the first musicals that met every requirement of the musical theater shows, while not being classified as either operas or operettas, were called musical comedies, because they came from comedies as opposed to theatrical tragedies. These were primarily comedic performances, but would include musicals of a more solemn nature as well. There are hundreds of musical comedies premiered on Broadway in the beginning of the 20th century. And the classical sense of a musical comedy would first be challenged in 1927 by Showboat, which introduced the musical genre. Today, we say that a musical comedy is a show that is primarily focused on humor and laughter rather than the message of the story. This might include shows like Guys and Dolls, The Music Man, Bye Bye Birdie, Rock of Ages, Book of Mormon, Legally Blonde, Something Rotten, The Prom, etc., etc. There are a lot of shows. So, a musical. A musical is everything that meets the 6 requirements, that uses song, dance, and dialogue to tell a story. It grew in opposition to the musical comedy genre, which means that the message is more important than the entertainment. Its purpose is to challenge the audience's mind about something. Musical has also become a collective term for musicals and musical comedies combined. Some examples of musicals are Showboat, Oklahoma, Into the Woods, Come From Away, Hadestown, Jagged Little Pill, Dear Evan Hansen, Waitress, and many more. And then we have the musical revue. So a musical revue is not a musical at all, because it doesn't tell a story. Instead, it showcases sketches and songs that are held together by an idea or a creator. It is original material and but still can have a deeper message. But because of the lack of story, we call it a revue. So some examples of musical revues are Ain't Misbehaving, Starting Here, Starting Now, Fosse, A My Name is Alice, and more. Cool. So a musical jukebox, or a jukebox musical, means that the story is built around pre-existing songs instead of written specifically for the show. So these can be by the same artist or taken from a lot of different artists and genres. And some examples of jukebox musicals are Mamma Mia, Rock of Ages, Jersey Boys, American Idiot, Moulin Rouge, Jagged Little Pill, and more. We also have something called a book musical, and that is a musical that has a very strong story and songs that are integrated with the plot. It usually has the 3 parts: a strong book, music, and lyrics. And the book refers to the script, which is contained dialogue and drama. The music is part of the material and holds the arrangement for instruments in the band and orchestra. The lyrics hold the words written for the piano part. In book musicals, the production is guided by these 3 parts. So dramatic development is key in book musicals, including the story, the character development, and dramatic structure. And examples of book musicals include Showboat, Oklahoma, Carousel, Legally Blonde, and more. Next up, we have the concept musicals. So in contrast to the book musicals, concept musicals focus more on the idea presented than on the story or the dramatic structure of the show. The idea or theme takes more precedence and are more important than the events or the story. So the songs and dance don't need to necessarily advance the plot as long as they strengthen or reintroduce the idea. A concept musical can be completely plotless, more like an ever-changing moment in time. It doesn't have to be linear, and it's up to the audience and the director to figure out what is going on. It is similar to a puzzle or a mosaic, where you need to take a step back to see like the full picture. So good examples of concept musicals are Hair, Company, A Chorus Line, The Last 5 Years, Cats, Pippin, Avenue Q, etc. Next up, we have minstrel shows. So minstrel shows is a type of show that was popular in the 19th century and early 20th century. These shows were very offensive in their mockeries of African American people, who were given no rights whatsoever during this time. These shows derived from when slave trading was at its most frequent in the US, and slave owners would steal the music from African American people and perform it themselves wearing blackface, meaning that they painted themselves black to look like someone of African descent. The personas and characters that were created were very wrong and misguided, but they still live on today. The main thing that the minstrel shows gave the show business was what they call the Master of Ceremony, also called the MC or just MC. Burlesque. Burlesque shows were popular in 1860 to about 1920 and predominantly for men. It was a comedy show in 3 acts that focused on dirty jokes, lightly dressed women, and spoofs and mockery of everything and everyone. So everyone was made fun of. And because everyone wanted to belong in this new American world, people appreciated being seen and recognized. However, this is where many international prejudices came from. I don't know, anything that is specific to a ethnicity of people and a stereotype most likely comes from these kinds of shows. Mae West was also a big burlesque star who sang very naughty songs. Just a little name there for you. And then we have variety shows. So variety shows were a dangerous art form that originated in the 1800s during Manifest Destiny. There would be a lot of bars and saloons with very poorly constructed stages for people to perform in, and a lot of masculine talking, drinking, and gabbling would occur during these shows as well. There would be fights, and people could actually lose their lives, and at some places, the women in the show could double as sex workers for extra money. The shows consist of a variety of performances, including musical performances, sketches, magic, acrobatics, ventriloquism, etc. Cool! Next up, we have vaudeville. Vaudeville is a family-friendly form of entertainment, and that featured many different acts of comedy, song, and dance. The shows could include a lot of different things, and are similar to variety shows if you would take away the danger of it. It was most popular during 1880 to 1930, and there were 3 different levels of vaudeville performances at this time, the third being famous all over the US and earning a lot of money. We also have pop rock musicals. Pop rock musicals are shows that have a score of a predominantly popular music genre, different from the contemporary or classical musical theater style. This includes contemporary pop, rock and roll, hip-hop, etc. So rock is the first genre that evolved into the musical theater genre, and Hair was the first show to fully feature a rock score. Other rock musicals include things like Grease, Rent, Spring Awakening, and Next to Normal, and other pop rock musicals include SpongeBob SquarePants, Hamilton, Beetlejuice, Dear Evan Hansen, Hairspray, Hadestown, and a lot of jukebox musicals are basically all pop rock musicals. And the very last one, we have contemporary musicals, which means that the music has been combined with traditional musical theater singing with contemporary pop rock influences. So the music and song structure is often written very close to the emotion of the character, almost speech-based and mostly like a little bit brighter. But some shows might also sound more legit, like Chaplin, A Christmas Story, Light in the Piazza, Matilda, etc. And other musicals might sound more like a belty, mixed, edgy kind of thing, like 9 to 5, Amelie, Anastasia, Avenue Q, Come From Away, Dear Evan Hansen, Ghost Quartet, Little Women, Newsies, Sisical, and so much more. Okay, there are a lot of words that may seem new and unfamiliar when you get into musical theater. So here are some of the most important to know. Score. The score is the collection of all the music in the show. It is written on the vertical scoring lines that connects the notes and the lyrics, also called a musical staff. So the score might include the entire orchestra and ensemble parts, or just a single solo line. The book. The musical book contains the scenes and dialogue of the show. The book can be from the actual book of which you're learning your lines, but it can also refer to just the story structure, the character development, and everything that happens in the show in dramatic terms. Next up, we have libretto. So libretto is another word for script in musical theater, and it includes the book and the songs. There is no musical composition in the libretto, it is only the dialogue and lyrics in text. And libretto also means little book in Italian. So in musical theater, we also divide songs and harmonies into different voice types. While dividing by voice type was more important or common in early musical theater, it is still something that we use today. However, now if you can sing the part, your voice type doesn't matter. You can always increase your vocal range. So, first one on the list here, we have soprano, which is the highest voice type for female identifying individuals. In early musical theater, operettas and more classical musicals, the soprano part is usually the significant female part of the show. The mezzo-soprano has grown much more in recent years of musical theater and was not significant at all in the beginning. It was a voice type for female identifying individuals as well. And mezzo means half, so the mezzo-soprano singer includes those who are between alto and soprano, or who can sing both the soprano and the alto vocal range. And for alto, that is the lowest common voice style for female identifying individuals. Alto singers usually have a fuller voice than soprano singers, and in early musical theater, alto singers would also play smaller, like side characters, more raunchy or something. Tenor is the highest voice type for male identifying individuals. So this voice type has become more popular as contemporary sounds were more introduced in musical theater, and now almost every male lead is a tenor. We also have baritone, which is between or a mix of the bass and tenor voice parts. It is the middle range of the male identifying individuals and was very common in older musicals. And then we have the bass, which is the lowest voice type for male identifying individuals and has a rich and deep quality. Bass singers are usually cast as villains, both in newer and older musicals. And here on the side, you can also see other terms that you might be hearing, like first soprano, which is the very highest soprano. You have contralto, which is someone with an alto but even deeper voice, so like extra deep alto. We also have countertenor, which is tenor but a little bit higher. We have barytenor, which is a combination between the baritone and tenor, and contrabass, which is even lower than the bass. So someone who's a true bass is also another word for it. And on the very bottom here, you see two different voice qualities, or vocal qualities. Two common sounds are used when talking about musical theater voices, especially for female identifying individuals. So vocal qualities refer to the placement of the voice and the style of singing. So while there are many more vocal qualities than just these two, the main two are the legit sound and the belt sound. The legit sound was more common in vocal quality in early age musicals. It has a classic operatic sound and uses a lot of sustained notes. Because opera was a precursor to musical theater, early musicals would have a more legit opera-like sound. And then the belt sound was introduced by the singer Ethel Merman. She popularized the sound with songs like There's No Place Like Show Business. Because there were no microphones in the 1980s, she used her voice to get all the way to the back of the room, changing placement of her voice. And the belt sound is one of the major vocal qualities that people aim to perfect today. It made people interested in the individuality of characters and the performances and their unique voices rather than the voices with perfect technique. However, today, because of a lot of talent-based music competitions and widespread practices in vocal techniques, not a lot of unique voices emerge on Broadway. A little sad. Next, let's move on to the artistic team. There are multiple parts of the artistic team, many more than are presented here, and I will show you the major positions, the ones that hold the most power. And many of these can also overlap and or be the same person. So, let's start with the composer. The composer is the person writing the music for the show. This can also be done by more than one person. The composer writes the notes and the rhythms of the music, but not the lyrics. Some significant musical theater composers are Stephen Sondheim, Andrew Lloyd Webber, Richard Rodgers, Lin-Manuel Miranda, George Gershwin, Stephen Flaherty, and many more. The librettist of a show writes the book and crafts the story. Because this is not as big of a musical theater spectacle, they are often underappreciated, but some significant librettists are Arthur Lawrence, Tina Fey, George Firth, Gerald Friedman, Otto Orbach, James Lapine, and many more. And then we have the lyricist. The lyricist of a show is the person writing the lyrics to the show. They do not write the music, only the words. And some significant lyricists are Oscar Hammerstein, Ira Gershwin, Stephen Sondheim, Andrew Lloyd Webber, Richard Rodgers, Lin-Manuel Miranda, and Lynn Ahrens, and many more. Another important part of the creative team is the producer. The producer is the person who holds the most power and has the highest position because they have all the financial controls. They hire all the members of the team and are in control of the investments. Today, producers are usually a team of people, but some significant musical theater producers have been Harold Prince, David Merrick, Scott Rudin, Cameron Mackintosh, and more. We also have the director, who is the one who has the creative control of the show and is in charge of everything that happens on the stage. They are responsible for the production and they lead the actors through the rehearsals. And some significant musical theater directors include Susan Stroman, Harold Prince, Casey Nicholaw, Bob Fosse, George Abbott, Michael Bennett, James Lapine, Gower Champion, Tommy Tune, and more. We also have the choreographer, who stages all the dances in the show. They make the choreography and then they teach it to the rest of the cast or to one of their assistants or dance captains. And as dance became more significant in shows, it also became more common for the director to also be the choreographer, or the choreographer to also be the director. And some significant choreographers also include Susan Stroman, Andy Blankenbuehler, Bob Fosse, Casey Nicholaw, Michael Bennett, Jerome Robbins, Agnes DeMille, Gower Champion, Tommy Tune, and more. And then we have the music director. So the music director leads the actors and musicians through the music in rehearsal and performances. They make, distribute, and teach the harmonies and parts to the rest of the cast and the orchestra. And while the composer writes the music director is the one that makes it come alive. The music director also rarely becomes famous for their work because the credit often goes to the composer, director, or someone else in the artistic team. Now let's talk a little bit about song structure and what is common. So whether in musical theater or popular music, songs usually hold some kind of structure. And when analyzing the structure of a song, we use letters for each part in order to recognize repeating sections. So the first one is usually A, and the next section is B, and so on, which usually makes the verse A and the chorus B. But this can of course change depending on the style of analysis or the structure of the song. Some common structures within musical theater are AABA. We have the song Summer Over the Rainbow as an example for that. We also have ABAB, which has no bridge, only verses and choruses, like Sit Down, You're Rocking the Boat. And then we have ABAC, which is a mix and match of parts and can vary. It is also called a 3-section variation. Other popular musical theater structures are ABCD, which has no melody repeats and is a through composed piece, which songs from Carousel usually follow this structure. We also have the very popular ABABCB, which is the most popular song structure in popular music and is growing in musical theater styles as well. So usually the chorus is very easy to learn and to sing along, also called a hook. We also have signature songs, so some songs that are universal and serve a specific purpose in musical theater. These might include the overture, the entr'acte, the opening number, the I Want song, and the 11 o'clock number. The overture and entr'acte are usually orchestral or instrumental pieces, following like a lot of different themes from the score, but I want to talk a little bit more about these three. So, opening number, sometimes referred to as the Happy Villagers number. It is the song that presents the given circumstances of the show and gives the audience the first impression and sets the expectations for the rest of the show. Usually the opening number supplies the audiences with the given circumstances, meaning who and what it's about, and where, when, and why the story takes place. A great example of a very famous opening number song that follows all these rules is Good Morning Baltimore from Hairspray. The I Want song is a little bit different. So the main character's I Want song is usually the second or third song of a show, but any song where a character is singing about their wants and dreams and aspirations is an I Want song. This song establishes this super objective, meaning what the character wants throughout the entire journey of the main character or a minor character. A great example of an I Want song is One Song Glory from Rent. Then we have the 11 o'clock number, which is the song that changes everything closer to the end of the show. It is called an 11 o'clock number because Broadway used to start at 8:45 p.m. and end by 11:15, and by 11 the audience would be tired. So this song would usually wake them up and keep them engaged. It is a pivotal climax moment for the story and character and usually includes some sort of discovery. Words Fail from Dear Evan Hansen is a good example of a very emotional 11 o'clock number. Let's move on to a little bit of a debate. So, adaptations versus original musicals. Something to consider when creating or writing a musical is whether to create a book or movie adaptation or to create something entirely new from scratch. There are benefits of both. The benefits of an adaptation of a musical are many, including that most of the work of creating characters, story structures, scenes, and moments are already done. You can also reuse dialogue and even staging. However, adapting a musical is not as flexible as creating something new because of the limits of the story or the pre-existing expectations of the show. Sure, it might bring in revenue depending on the success of the original work, but if you can't meet the expectations of the audience, it can easily become a flop. Instead, you might consider doing a new perspective of a pre-existing work or creating something completely new. This would mean that nothing is stopping you from doing what you want. There are no limits. However, there is a lot more work required, meaning that the possibilities for failure are a lot more as well. You will not know what works before you put it in front of an audience, and the workshopping process can be a lot longer. The very last thing I want to show you is Lehman Engel's 6 steps. Lehman Engel is someone who conducted almost 60 musicals in his lifetime and contributed a lot to the musical theater industry. Something that interested him was why some musicals failed while others became successful. He investigated and discovered 6 elements that all successful musicals have. And these 6 steps or elements are feeling, subplot, lyrics and particularization, romance, comedy, and music. So let's go through them. First off, we have feeling. The feeling is perhaps the most important element of musical theater because it is important that the audience can relate to the story. By creating inspiring characters that the audience wants to rescue or free from the circumstances of the story, the audience gets emotionally attached and invested. The story and our characters should be relatable, and the audience should be able to imagine themselves as the character. That is feeling. Next, we have subplot. To keep the audience interested in the story for a longer period of time, having just one main plot is not enough. By adding smaller subplots, the storylines become multi-dimensional. Events become more interesting as they affect different characters and create a variety of outcomes. The subplots can also carry themes and ideas that the main plot cannot sustain for a longer time. Next up, we have romance. Something that always keeps the audience invested is when a character falls in love, or when they have strong passions or desires. An audience loves watching 2 characters fall in love or develop their relationship, even if it isn't an amorous relationship. It can be just friendship, or love of power, music, or any other strong passion. The most important part is that this desire develops into something more, and it doesn't matter if it makes the situation better or worse. Next up, we have comedy. So funny elements are important to the story because they bring release, laughter, and a chance for the audience to breathe. There are many different types of comedy that can be used, but most importantly, it is that the comedy is natural to the story. It should be integrated and not just inserted, and it is just as significant as everything else. Humor and comedy are everywhere in life and should create opportunities and challenges for the characters just as much as anything else. Next up, we have music. To be successful, a show doesn't have to have music in it. But if it does, it is important that the music is specific and meaningful. Music serves as a background and a subtext to the story. And if every line and piece of music has a purpose, the story becomes so much stronger. If the music is specific to each character or situation, then the audience will gain a more foundational understanding and a more immersive experience from it. The melodies, rhythms, and qualities of the music should be essential and integrated into the story. No musical moment should be interchangeable with another. And last, we have lyrics and particularization. The last important step of a successful show is attention to detail. Every character should be unique and original because details invite the audience on a new and memorable journey. Generic characters and situations won't get a strong reaction, whether good or bad. It will be boring to watch. Instead, tell a story that no one else has ever heard of before. And that's it. So thank you so much for watching this first episode. Next up, we will dive into pre-musical theater era with like ancient Egypt and ancient Greece, Shakespeare, Sanskrit, a lot of different things. It'll be a lot of educational stuff, so make sure to hop onto the next video. Or if I've mentioned something in this video that I already have a video for, you can also hop on over to that. Yeah, and post all of your questions. If you have a thing you want to add to the debate about adaptations and original musicals, post that in the comments. And I will see you in the next one. Thank you so much for being here.